Nigeria, by extension, Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. Okay. Many Nigerians are dissatisfied with their elected representatives but don't know what steps to take when these lawmakers fail to serve the interests of their constituents. While elections provide an opportunity to vote out non-performing representatives every 4 years, the Nigerian Constitution also allows citizens to take action during a term through a process known as a recall. However, the process is rarely used due to low public awareness, misconceptions, and technical barriers. It's another beautiful week, another beautiful episode on your favorite primetime show, Ways. My name remains Osayua Mesali, and today, of course, every Mondays in partnership with Enough is Enough, we're discussing the Citizen's Guide to Recall, and we have our guest, Cynthia Mbamalu. She is the Director of Programs, Yaga Africa. She'll be joining me much later. Remember, Ways is all about you. You are the why in Ways. So be a part of the conversation every single day. You can add your voice to the discussion. Head on to our YouTube channels at Official Upgrade TV. Hit that subscribe button and also share the links right now with your friends and family to join the show right now. When I open the phone lines, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this topic. You can also join us via WhatsApp. So just send an add me to WhatsApp. Would add you via video. As always, let me allow you to please ponder on my quote for today. It says, the right of recall is a powerful check on the abuse of power, and it is essential to the preservation of liberty. And this was from Thomas Jefferson. Yes, so we'll discuss all of these issues around recall. Yes, there's been a lot of recall issues in the news lately. But let me first of all run off on a break. When I come back from that break, I have a few news interests for you for the day. Stay with me. All right, so I'm going to start the news interests with a very, I think it was on Saturday, we saw a very bad motor crash on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. We always hear about road crashes almost all the time. So this report says that motorists blame indiscriminate truck parking for Lagos-Ibadan road crashes. Now, according to the report, motorists plying the Mowe-Berger axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, they've blamed indiscriminate parking of trucks in front of, there's a gas station called the NIPCO gas station opposite the Mountain of Fires and Miracles Ministry as one of the reasons for fatal accidents on the highway. They identified this factor following a fatal crash. As I said, it happened on Saturday morning in front of that particular gas station, which claimed about 7 lives. And the accident occurred when a commercial bus rammed into a stationary truck due to speeding. As I said, 7 passengers were confirmed dead, while 3 others sustained varying degrees of injuries. that crash on Saturday was quite disturbing. When I couldn't watch the video, but this is what I would say. When it comes to our roads, I mean, we couldn't go live on Wednesday, and I can tell you for free that yes, there must have been a bridge closure, but we had more to do with it, like our own behavior on the roads, right? Because by the time I got to the point where I was about to exit the traffic, I just realized that it was just I would like to say the sheer lack of inconsideration of the people. You know clearly that where you are headed towards the traffic. You blocked every other person. We that we are going towards where probably traffic is freer, you blocked everybody. Since I can't go to where I'm going, you two cannot pass. So it is just that inconsiderate use of the road that also then worsened the traffic that we all experienced in Lagos on Wednesday. I'll say the same thing with what these motorists are saying, you know, on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. You just see, like, you are driving in the middle of the road, like on a highway. You see a commercial bus or a truck, all those big articulated trucks, without any form of warning or anything, just stops abruptly. How would there not be crashes? And you know you are a commercial bus driver, right? You have to be. So when I'm driving on the express, I actually think like I am 10 people driving one car. I think about the person, the pedestrian. I think about the what's it called? What do they call them? Those dispatch riders. I think about everybody, the fellow road users. I think about the articulated trucks. I think about, you know, those tiny buses. Then there are the tiny Ubers or the ride-hailing cars. It is just, so you are thinking like you are 10 people driving one car. That is how you're supposed to be thinking, right? So I would understand that, yes, there are, what's it called, indiscriminate parkings and all of that happens on that road. But as a commercial driver, you already know, because that is a route that you apply every single day, right? I just feel like sometimes we do not even put a bit of caution to even our own lives as human beings, because you already know. Like, there are some times when I'm going to a specific place, I know the nuances of the kind of drivers around that area. So because you already know those nuances, you just try as much as possible and pretend like you're the only sane person on that road. It saves a lot of lives. Now, 7 people lost their lives to that accident. And I don't even know what the federal government is going to do, because this is directly under the current minister, right, David Umahi, because Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a federal road. What are we doing about this indiscriminate parking that has been alleged? What are we doing about ensuring that road users are complying to the rules and regulations of the road? Then what is road safety doing about it? I just think that everybody's hands has to be on deck for us to be able to correct some of the loose knots in the heads of a lot of people, because there are really some really, really crazy drivers on the road. And that's what I say all the time when you're driving, pretend you're the only sane person. It does save a lot of lives. Sadly, 7 people lost their lives to that tragic incident on Saturday. I'd start calling everybody that I know, you know, that I hope you're not on this road. I hope you were not planning to travel. I know, because you don't even know what is going on. It's just sad, but, you know, that's the report on a Lagos-Ibadan Expressway crash. I'll move on to my next story. So today I actually had to cancel 3 of my meetings because I was supposed to have them on the mainland, and they said there was going to be a protest that was going to happen in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, right? To some extent, nothing really. I didn't really hear a lot of things happening in Lagos, but in Port Harcourt and in what's the word now? In Abuja, there were protests. So there was a nationwide protest that was led by the Take It Back movement and other civil society organizations. You know, it commenced in Abuja. The demonstration kicked off today, and it is aimed at drawing attention to the alleged misuse of the Cyber Act, right? The worsening economic hardship in the country, and what the organizers have described rather as a state of emergency in Rivers State. Protesters gathered in the nation's capital, wielding placards with various inscriptions such as "Stop the Repression" and "Let Us Breathe," among others. Human rights activist, of course, Omoyele Sowore, was cited at the protest ground, lending support to the cause. Yeah, so we'll just keep watching. We don't know how long this is for. But some people were tear gassed in Port Harcourt, you know, in the bid to disperse, you know, the crowd. I'll move on to my final story for today. When I saw this story, I was just smiling. Politicians, if I believe you at my own peril. So, Abia State Governor, right? I believe that's his, yeah, Alex Otis. Abia State Governor has said, I'll retire after 8 years as governor. I'm not going to Abuja. It's all right. So the current governor of Abia State has ruled out any plans to seek a Senate seat after completing his tenure in office. He was speaking at a reception that was organized in his honor by the Anambra Development Union Association Aba branch on Saturday. He described recent reports suggesting a possible Senate ambition as inaccurate and misleading. He stated that his intention is to retire from active politics after serving as governor for 8 years, urging the public to disregard speculations about a move to Abuja. So the governor also called on critics to refrain from spreading false narratives and emphasized the need to create space for younger politicians, or Nigerians rather, in politics, noting that the evolving society requires fresh leadership. I love what you've said. We will screenshot this and just hold it. After 8 years, we'll come back to revisit this. Because, I mean, we have heard several politicians say this exact same thing. I think the way politicians are so powerful in Nigeria, and almost a lot of them have made it a life career for themselves, you know. So that's why it's so difficult for some of them to be able to step out of the political, like active politics, to just go back to their normal lives, right? Because why? There's nothing to do. So a lot of them, they become career politicians. I don't know. I like what you've said. I think it's a good thing, you know. I want to hope that you stand by it. That's all I would say. I'll take a break. When I come back from the break, let's discuss how we can recall some of these our leaders. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we'll connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time.
All right, thanks for staying. Now, understanding the recall process, right? Of course, a recall is a legal process through which citizens can remove a senator, member of the House of Representatives, or a state assembly member before the end of their term, if they believe that the person no longer represents their interests. So only legislators can be recalled. Executives like presidents, governors, local government chairpersons cannot be recalled, but can be removed through other constitutional processes like impeachment. So according to Section 69 of the 1999 Constitution as amended and the 2024 INEC guidelines, the recall process involves the following 6 steps. Petition submission. Thus, constituents must draft and sign a petition stating that they no longer have confidence in their lawmaker, and the petition must be signed by at least 50% plus 1 of the registered voters in that constituency and submitted to the INEC chairman with the names, voters' details, phone numbers, and email addresses of the signatories. Number 2, notice of recall. INEC formally notifies the lawmakers and publishes the notice on its website. Number 3, signature verification. INEC verifies that the signatures are from valid registered voters, and this includes manual screening and physical verification at polling units using the Beavers device and an official voter register. Both the petitioners and the lawmakers may appoint observers for this stage. Number 4 would be referendum. If the signatures are verified, INEC will conduct a referendum in the constituency within 90 days, and all registered voters in that area are eligible, of course, to vote. Then affirmative vote, a majority of all registered voters in the constituency must vote yes for the recall to succeed. If this happens, the lawmaker's seat is declared vacant. Then by-elections will then happen. INEC will then conduct by-elections to fill the vacant position. You see, as it be like this, it's a very long process. So joining me to shed more light is Cynthia Mbamalu. She's the Director of Programs IAGA Africa, and she's joined me via Zoom tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, Cynthia. Are you there?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Oh my goodness. This process of recall is such a long process. So I was watching something today and somebody was saying that how come it's so easy for you to remove a governor than for you to remove our representatives, our lawmakers that are supposed to be helping us, represent our interests, right, at the both state and national levels. But Cynthia, why are we talking about this thing? I would say that it's just a spin-off of what had been happening in the news lately, especially with one of our senators, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, that had been, under so much pressure, and they've done all sorts of things to try to call that lady, and INEC came back to say, okay, you know what, that process is flawed. And I think I hear now that they want to go back and recalibrate and restart the process again. But hey, Citizens Guide to Recall. Recall is a very important process. Why is recall an important process, and why should citizens start to pay attention to this power that they wield?
Well, when you gave your intro, you talked about the power of the recall. Citizens have the power to recall the lawmakers, so at the national and state assembly level, while for the governors or president, they would be, they can only be removed through impeachment or through any other constitutional process, but mostly through impeachment. I think let us understand why recall is important. Our democracy, or democracy as we know it, is often described as the only system of government where citizens are empowered as the sovereign. This is a system of government where the power belongs to the people. And the National Assembly, the State Assembly, or the legislature in itself is the hub of democracy, which is why our lawmakers are called representatives. And you'd see most times you use the term my representative, my legislator. Most times you don't use that term representative on the president, because the hub of democracy is the legislative arm of government. That is where 3 core functions are performed. 1, lawmaking; 2, oversight; 3, representation. Meaning that the National Assembly, the State Assembly, is a symbol of our democracy in the sense that when our lawmakers or legislators speak, they speak on our behalf, which is why the Constitution gives the people the direct power to recall lawmakers who don't meet their responsibilities or perform their responsibilities. In fact, Section 69 talks about when there is loss of confidence in your legislator, then you can, as a people, recall your lawmaker. Because if you're elected to speak on our behalf and all of a sudden we don't have confidence in your ability to speak on our behalf, then we as a people can organize and say, no, come back, enough is enough. We have tried, come back, let's get someone else to get in. Unlike the executive, where for an executive, what has to be done is either the National Assembly does the recall, and in the sense is that the National and State Assembly, because they act on our behalf, the expectation is legislators can perform the function of impeachment because they are speaking for the people. And so where there's an order or where there's a process of impeachment, the assumption is that you are acting on behalf of the people. And so when it comes to our democracy, it's important we understand the powers we have as a people in our relationship with our legislators. Legislators exist for us, for we, the people. And they exist to ensure that there is peace, there is good governance, and the welfare of the people are addressed. In fact, if you read the Constitution, the first arm of government recognized in the Constitution of Nigeria is the legislative arm of government. So after the initial section that talks about Nigeria, talks about the Constitution, talks about the states that would exist in the country, in the federation called Nigeria, the next is legislative powers. So you have legislative powers even before executive powers. And it goes further to highlight legislative powers vested on the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And then the subsequent section talks about, for the state level, the State Assembly. Why is the legislative arm seen first? Because in a constitutional democracy, the focus usually is on the parliament, the legislature. That is where laws are made. That is what defines that the democratic principles are upheld. That is where representation is made. That is where the voices of the people are amplified and represented. That is where oversight is done. That is ensuring that the executive arm of government does not exercise arbitrary powers and do not act at their own whims and caprices. And more importantly, that the executive arm works for the benefits of the people, which is why oversight function is bestowed on the legislative arm of government. So if you imagine the importance of this arm of government, then we, the people, we need to pay a lot more attention on that arm of government, who are our senators, who are our members in the House, who are our state legislators, and even at the local level, who are our councillors, because councillors also at the local level represent our interests in the local legislative council at the local level. These are important offices that we have to take seriously because that is the symbol and the hub of our democracy.
Well said, Cynthia. You know, as you were talking, right, it just kept ringing in my head. How did we get to that point where we completely ignored this relevance, this importance? Up until the 2023 general elections, right, a lot of us were not bothered about our representatives. Once we were going to vote a particular party at the executive level, the term was just going to go all the way, right? So if we were voting a particular party at presidency, we just represented the same, replicated the same term on the same party, regardless of who it was that was representing, right? But something tweaked in the 2023 general elections because I monitored different polling units and I saw how we started intentionally voting based on who is the person there, right? But we are still not there yet. First of all, how did we get to that point where we are not even paying attention to this very critical part of governance? We're just focused on the executives. How did we get there? I mean, who is intentionally deviating our thinking or our minds away from that very important seat? Then how can we start to get it back? Because we're still not there yet. We don't care who is a representative, right? We just vote based on political sentiments or affiliations.
Yes, you make really valid points. And the truth is, one of the reasons is our military, the history of our military dictatorship in Nigeria. If you look at Nigeria's history from independence to current day,
Cynthia, are you there? Okay. I think we're having troubles with Cynthia's network. She'll probably try to come back. Because, you know, if an arm of government is this important, because in the end now, what it means is that the problem that we are having today, right, as a people, the real issue, the core issue that we are having, is that there is no check and balance. And the people that are supposed to checkmate and balance, you understand, the nuances or whatever it is, or excesses of the executives, are supposed to be these people that are representing us, our interests. How come over the years we have looked away? Because we keep on complaining. It is not the president that will solve our problem. It is not a governor that will solve our problem. Right? It is not. So the people that, it's a collective work, it's teamwork. It's somebody that will say, no, we are supposed to sit and make sure that this person is doing their job. Okay, I think we have you back, Cynthia. I lost you for a second, so I was trying to keep
I apologize.
up. I was trying to keep
I
up
can tell,
until you
and
came back.
I love how you held the fort.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My internet is trying to disrupt this conversation, but I switched to another network.
Oh, awesome. I think this is better because we have your video back. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I said one is our history of military dictatorship in Nigeria. Like I was saying earlier, the way the military operated was basically they silenced and weakened that arm of government, which was why you'd see they always rule with decrees and order. You see order this, decree number this and that. So we did not have, or we've not had a long experience of consistent engagement with that arm of government. What we've been used to is a head of state who is all powerful, all knowing, and so there's being an overbearing focus on the office of the president and the office of the governor, because you also had administrators who managed or who ran the affairs of. However, with our transition to democracy in 1999, the National Assembly's rebirth or the new journey began. But we as a people, we are yet to move away from the experience or the mentality of the military era. To now understand that first, we are now in a democracy. Secondly, that the power now lies with we, the people, that sovereignty belongs to us. And that thirdly, that those we elect into office are there to serve us. They are there to serve us, and they are not there as our lords or our emperors or our, kings. The way we engage military heads of state and military administrators is almost like the way we engage governors and presidents. We look at them like, oh, these people cannot be talked about. They are the kings. Once they win elections, that is it. They are the all and mighty. Then we forget that we have our powers protected in the legislative arm of government. And so I think that history is one of the things that has kept us where we are. And so at this point, what we need is, as Nigerians, we really need to read our constitution. A lot of us do not take our time to read our constitution to understand that, one, we have the power, two, we have the right to make demands, and three, people we elect represent us. They are not there, and they are not there because they are the, how do I put it, because they control things. They are there because we want them there, and they are accountable to us. And I think that is where we need to get to. That consciousness on what democracy means. And so if you ask me, why has this also, is there an attempt to undermine the role of the legislative arm of, I'll stay here. Let's look at the history. Currently, we've had consistently an executive arm that deploys all it can to undermine the independence and autonomy of the legislative arm of government, be it at the federal or at the state level. I will begin with state level. But at least we've engaged the electoral process consistently. What we've seen is most times state governors want to control the elections of the state assembly so that they are basically handpicking those that would win the elections. And what we have is post-elections. We have a lot of state assemblies that are not independent and autonomous. A lot of them are more or less appendages to the governor. So what you see is you don't have state legislators challenging the governors or questioning the governors or demanding for accountability on behalf of the people. We just see state assemblies that basically are in a dobale mode with the governor. Why it ought not to be so? You're not, how do I put it? You're not employees of the governors.
Absolutely.
You are elected as independent, autonomous individuals who stand and speak for the people, because you occupy an independent and autonomous arm of government. But what we have is at the state level, most times, you hardly see legislators challenge the governors. And governors, because of the kind of powers they wield, also look for ways to not just undermine independence, but to control the affairs of the legislative arm of government, which is why things like who becomes a speaker, tenure, or how long a speaker lasts in office is most times determined by the influence of the governor. It ought not to be so. So there is that attempt to constantly undermine that arm of government so that that arm is not independent to question or challenge the executive arm. And by so doing, they also create a lot of buzz around the elections of the executive and undermine the attention on the elections of the legislative arm of government. Because the power bearers understand that if the people take this election seriously, if the people decide to elect independent-minded individuals, then they would lose. And so there's always an attempt to ensure that the process of candidate emergence for the House of Assembly and the National Assembly is most times rigged in such a way that people that are emerging are more likely to bend to the whims and caprices of the governor. That's at the state level. At the national level, it's almost the same thing. There's a reason why I think in the 9th Assembly, a lot of talk was on around the rubber stamp National Assembly, if you remember.
Yes.
And why did citizens think it was a rubber stamp? Because it seemed like there was an assembly that was not willing to stand up against the president. So when demands are made, when requests come from the executive, there's a likelihood that it would go through. Rather than debates, rather than questions, rather than calling the president to order, we didn't have that. Unfortunately, the 10th Assembly is also towing that line because we also see an arm of government where consistently it's almost like whatever comes from the presidency is given accelerated action. And I'm not saying that there's a problem with arms of government working together. I only have a problem when the supposed hub of democracy is not able to wield its power in standing up for democracy. And you can think of specific actions that have happened in recent times, from the decision on the state of emergency illegally imposed
and the suspension of the governor.
To the suspension of the governor, because it was not just a imposition of state of emergency, it was suspension of the governor of the legislative arm of government. And we thought the National Assembly will rise up to the occasion, but they didn't. We just saw a shouldy process. We've seen as simple as the national anthem. There was a change in national anthem. There was no national debate.
No question.
You can't have a country where you want to change the national anthem and the people are not even consulted. At least have a public hearing. Ask younger people what they think. Ask the citizens what they think. But it came in, it was one of the fastest bills to go through. There are so many others. And so the question is, how do we begin to elect people that are independent-minded, that care about democracy, to get into that arm of government? Because as it is now, we have an executive arm that has overbearing powers, that understands the powers it has, both the power of arm, the power of the purse, and power of the office. It has these powers and is willing to use it to undermine the independence of the legislative arm of government at the detriment of the people. And so when you ask me, the summary of all of this talk is simple. Yes, our military history made it difficult for us, or has made it difficult for us, to review how we engage government generally, especially the legislative arm of government. But secondly, there is a deliberate attempt by power bearers and power brokers to ensure that from the electoral process itself, that arm of government is not independent, because when the process is not credible and transparent, it means people that emerge are people with questionable character, that have things that can be held against them, and people that don't have independent mind. So at the polls, you have limited options because you're voting between the devil and a deputy. Most of them win the elections, they get in, and sometimes you expect some sort of, rebellious or some sort of revolutionary action in the defense of our democracy, in the defense of the rights of the people. But when we expect them to speak the most is when they are the most violent. And so it's almost like the more we engage, the more we see our democracy losing those important things that makes it a democracy. So it's almost like we're losing our democratic values and we're getting into a more dictatorial scene where you have the overbearing powers of the presidency at the national level or the governors at the state level, and where lawmakers, representatives that even speak up, are punished. I'm sure if you follow the news, there have been times lawmakers were denied their salaries in the state
Absolutely.
assembly. Some
In
of the
fact, you
lawmakers
see,
are
right
recalled.
now, Cynthia, I was just going to say
Yes.
that even governors now, based on what has happened with River State, right, the power right now is at the center. Because what the president has told every governor by that singular act of what he's done with River State is that I can take you out. That's what that's the message that the president has sent. Because, I mean, well, that's
Yes.
what we saw. But let's go on a very short break. When we come back from that break, we'll continue the conversation because this recall process is quite lengthy. I want you to help me understand how this is even going to be possible. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having an amazing conversation. We're discussing Citizens' Guide to the Recall Process, right? Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also send us and add me to that same WhatsApp line. We can add you via video. You can also call our phone lines. The numbers to call 07025007749 or 07014242420. Let's hear what you have to say. Cynthia, so now, when I started the conversation, I broke down, it's like maybe 7 steps to this recall process. First of all, what is your thought on that entire step by step for the recall process? Isn't that so cumbersome, right? Is it not something that is too lengthy that it is almost like, for me, I feel like it's structured. You know how law cases are in Nigeria, that you will be in court for 100 years. So you just say, I beg, I no do again. You know? So it seems like this recall process is structured to frustrate, to frustrate Nigerians. Or do you think that it is actually needed? All that process is needed?
Okay, so I'm among those that have always advocated for a simpler and easier process of recall, because we need to begin to exercise this power as a people to get our representatives to do the right thing when they are elected into office. However, as a student of law, actually constitutional law, it is one thing I've understood is in different countries where the power of recall exists, there's usually the need to introduce specific safeguards to ensure that the power of recall is not used for political interest. And the idea is when give citizens the power, but because we understand the political class can be mischievous, especially when there's power and money is involved, it's always safer to introduce certain safeguards that makes it a bit difficult, but yet possible. So that if it is a process initiated by the people, it can achieve the result it wants. However, if it's politically motivated, you will need a lot more resources to pull through. And so that is the lawyerly way to debate, to argue for this.
Well, just to even kind of like say to your point, because of this cumbersomeness, that is why we see that Senator Natasha's case, it worked in her favor.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked in her favor. Go ahead.
Yes. If you think about the attempts for recall we've had from 1999, about 6 times they've been attempts to recall lawmakers. Each of those times have been politically driven. It's not been like constituents woke up and said, oh, you're not representing us well, we want to recall you. It's usually because you stepped on someone's toes and they want to teach you a lesson. And so it's failed each of those times. And that's why I said, if we understand that in our climb, because of the level of civic consciousness, it's easier to manipulate something. It's so that way we understand why it is important to have this safeguard. Now, the Constitution is clear. To recall your lawmaker, you need signatures indicating that you've lost confidence in your lawmakers. You need 50% plus 1, more than half of the registered voters in that constituency. And so basically 50% plus 1, 51% safer of the registered voters in the constituencies to sign that, yes, we want to recall this lawmaker. They sign, they put in their address, their contact details, and then this petition that is signed is submitted to the Electoral Commission, INEC. INEC now has the duty to verify that these signatures and the names actually are names from the register of voters for that constituency, which is why if you notice that when the signatures were signed, the petitioners made a submission to the Electoral Commission. There was some issues with dates and addresses, and the commission drew the attention to that. You need to put in the right addresses and contact details. That was done. Then a notice was issued to distinguished Senator Natasha to tell her that, oh, a notice has been sent or a petition for recall has been received by the Electoral Commission. That is what the rule provides. Now, the Constitution says after the signature, INEC duly verifies. So it uses the term duly verified verifies the signature before it proceeds to referendum. Now, the Constitution gives INEC the powers to make its legislation, its rules and regulations for processes under its powers. And if you go further now, the INEC guideline on recall now provides the clear details on how verification would be done. Verification happens more like it's twofold. The first is at the point of the Electoral Commission. They have to confirm, go through the names, signatures, and everything to confirm that, yes, these names are the same name in the register. So Adamu Musa James living in number this, that is Adamu Musa James living number this, that in the register. It has to do that is manual verification. So it does its manual verification to verify that these people actually are registered voters in that constituency one, and that the numbers of the petition has achieved the required threshold of 50% plus one. Now, once it verifies that it has passed its threshold, they've had the number of the 50% plus one registered voters signing, and the petitioners are reasonably verified to be the same individuals in the register of voters, a notice is issued to the respective lawmaker, and then a verification happens at the polling units in this constituency. Now, I want to explain why this is important. Yes, it's difficult, but I always make this argument that if citizens care enough to call or recall their lawmakers, they would not have a problem mobilizing 50% plus one. But that happens more when we are conscious and engaging. Because I know when I talked earlier, so many of us even know what our lawmakers are doing. How many bills have they sponsored? What kind of issues are they talking about in the chambers? How do they perform their oversight? Are they ensuring the budget allocated is used? To do this, you have to follow your lawmaker, follow the work that they are doing. And if you find out that lawmakers are not performing their duties, I do believe that when the people care enough to recall someone, they can mobilize 50% plus one. All you need to do is to basically go and say, this person we elected did not work for us. You do the campaign door to door, and you get people to sign. Because if you have the required number signing, so if they care enough, then they will also care enough to come out at the point of verification.
Cynthia, say una when I be lawyer, yes. una no like digital. Because you see, the reason I'm saying this is that for me, I think all of these things can be done, right? If, for instance, we want to recall a senator. Because there's one senator I like to recall from that seat. If I had the opportunity. Sister,
right? there are people I want to
There are
recall.
plenty. I have their list that we want to recall. But however, right, you know how we have signed petitions in the past where you just see people sending you something on your phone. I mean, so many campaigns. I am sure Yaga must have done some of these petitions in the past. I don't know. But different organizations, especially civil society groups, they send petitions on a regular where we do that. But the fact that, INEC is not thinking about creating somewhat like a portal where you as a registered voter can go and say, this particular senator, I want to start, and I want to put it there. And maybe since the link is coming from a verified source, I can then just spread that link across. I mean, make it easy for people to be able to say, and verifiable. It's not something that we would have to go too far. Because now, before you can even access that, you must access it with your, probably maybe just something. I mean, technology is making life easy for a lot of us, right? So is there going to be any way that we are able to find the right technology for this kind of a recall process? Because I feel like it is because of this very, very, yes, it's good in a way because it's favoring the good people now. Right? Because if somebody is doing good and one politician just feels like, I don't like your energy, I want to take you out. If the process was very easy, they will just take you out, right? The way the process is structured, it is also meant to somehow protect you know, people from political bully or whatever I'll call it, right? So, but how can we start to intentionally maybe advocate for a more seamless process, a more easier process, where I can just say, you know what, this is what is happening in this constituency. We're not seeing governance, we're not being represented, blah, blah, blah. And we just send it, you know, directly, we upload it to the INEC portal and let them start to do. Because I was just thinking in my head, 250,000 signatures. How did they do that? Do you understand? Like, it's a lot of work. But you know you lawyers, I don't know, you people like paper. Me, I don't like paper. So is there going to be any, are we going to see that point where we will start to embrace technology for this kind of a process, just to make it easier and to get better participation? Because a WhatsApp link can reach 100,000 people in 2 seconds. Do you understand?
Yes, yeah, I understand your point. And this is more a conversation with the Electoral Commission, because, like, the Constitution is clear. It just says duly verified by the Electoral Commission. So INEC has the power to it highlights the procedure for verification, more or less. Now, the thing about the petition, I do understand the demand for technology. And honestly, as a younger Nigerian, I always say we can always test or adopt technology as a complementary system to what we have. And so this is a conversation that can have the Electoral Commission. How do we integrate technology? Because actually our register, voter register, is now electronic. If you remember, for registration of voters, you can begin your process online before you go for the data capturing.
That's the point, offline. Yeah.
And you can actually check your details on the INEX portal to ensure that you're duly registered. Because if you put your VIN, your voter identification number, if you put your VIN in on the portal, it will show you your registration details, your polling unit, and what have you.
Single
so
thing.
That can actually be explored. Yes, and actually, I do believe that this and that advocacy we can have with the Electoral Commission, that is it possible to review your guidelines to introduce an alternative means for signature collection by adding a technology-based process in addition to the manual. And why I say manual is because we also know that there are citizens who live in constituencies who may not have as much access to technology. So perhaps I do believe that it's an important time to actually have that argument, that can we introduce this? Since the register is online also, INEC can also do electronic verification of voters for the signature part. Now, where it will be tricky is when they start the verification process. So now the first part is to get the signatures, which I think we can deploy the technology to say, okay, we would get signatures both electronically and in person. But the second part that will be tricky is the verification process. Now, the verification process is like elections day. And it comes at, that's why also INEC also does not even like to go for this kind of mission, because it's huge resource, both human and financial resources. You have to deploy verification officers to all the polling units within the constituency, have the register of the petition with the names of petitioners and the signatures. Then the BVAS has been introduced with the Electoral Act in 2022, making BVAS a compulsory part of our process. Every voter that has signed also confirm your signature on the form, on the petition. The petition is called the Form EC41. Now, this petition, you can either sign or thumbprint. So usually, it's difficult to confirm it, because most times, if people sign on behalf of you, on that day, if you come and the BVAS verifies you, you have to also countersign where your signature is to ensure that the two signatures match. And so there is that manual verification that is required after the verification that is done by the Electoral Commission. So I do believe that for this one, because it is like an elections process, there may be a requirement for those who sign to also physically be present to be verified using the BVAS. Because the BVAS, as it is now, is only technology by law that accredits or authenticates voters to be sure that, yes, you are the rightful voter. Now, after that is done, and they confirm that everyone that signed is the same person that has come to be verified. They've been verified by the BVAS, and their signatures, the countersign and it matches. That document is uploaded on the IREV, the INEC Result Viewing Portal. so voters can see that, yes, these signatures are valid. If that is done and they meet the requirement, which is everyone, the 50% plus actually came out and verified, then we go to referendum. Now, referendum is where it's where it gets tricky, because referendum basically would happen at every polling unit in the constituency where voters registered, whether you sign a petition or not, you are allowed to come and vote yes or no. And it just needs simple majority. So if 10 people come out and 9 says recall, the recall happens. There's no threshold for how many percentage of people needs to come out. All that is required is like elections day. So referendum is like the elections to the National Assembly. You just need the total number of voters that show up. You do a simple majority. So once you have a simple majority, either for yes or no, it determines whether the recall has gone through or whether it hasn't. And for that, you can have the party, the agents for the lawmaker represented, media, observers, you have people observing the process. After that is done, you also have the process moving from the polling unit to the ward, to the constituency, to the LGA, and then the constituency collation center before it's finally documented, and the lawmaker will be recalled after that report is sent to the National Assembly. After all of that, if it's successful, a by-elections will be conducted. Now, the by-elections can be contested by any interested party or candidate.
Including the person that was recalled.
The person that was recalled can still recontest. There's nothing that says he can't. Can still recontest. So if the person wins again,
oh, yeah, it's your case. We'll go back again.
So if the people are determined, they can do round and round. We recall you, we recall you again.
I'll come back again.
Like I said, yes, it does. The challenge here, honestly, is that as a people, we don't engage our democratic process actively. So if you think about elections, how many voters turn out to vote? We're struggling with 20% in the 20%. Some states even give you 10% turnout. So you can imagine that for turnout already, for elections, we're not even coming out in our numbers to vote. Most times, the presidency or presidential election has more participation.
Yeah.
But if you look at results for the others, the turnout is low.
Very low.
And so, because as a people, like I said, we're not yet consciously engaging. I'm not sure what we can do differently to get that spirit of activism back or to instill it in us. If we're engaging consciously and deliberately, we would be able to choose people who can represent us well. And when they don't perform, we've had countries where recall, you have youth groups who have told themselves that this person must be recalled. And they are the ones, they're doing like door-to-door campaign. They are going door-to-door and telling people, we need to recall this lawmaker. This is why. It's not political. It is citizens-driven. And they get the signatures they need and they recall. But this only
I think Cynthia, just hearing you speak, I think the reason we've not had a successful recall in the history of Nigeria is because all of it has been politically motivated. If citizens wake up to say this lawmaker is underperforming and we want to recall this lawmaker, it will successfully pull through. It will.
I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you.
Thank you so much. Yes. We were having fun. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We should have you again, please. I really enjoyed.
No problem.
I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much. All right, so Nigeria's democracy thrives when citizens actively hold public officials accountable. The recall process though underused, is a constitutional right that gives power back to the people. With proper mobilization, knowledge and courage, citizens can demand better representation even before the next election cycle. So you have to occupy your office of the citizen. You also need to shine your eye. And thank you. I cannot thank enough is enough for this beautiful partnership, and that we have every Monday to bring great conversations and more citizen consciousness your way every Monday. We'll see you tomorrow. But before we go, if you missed our quote for today, it says, the right of recall is a powerful check on the abuse of power, and it is essential to the preservation of liberty. That was from Thomas Jefferson. I'll see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.